Hi there, I'm Scott Lowe with ActualTech Media, and thank you for joining us for this RoadCast video. I'm joined today at Cohesity headquarters by Sai Mukundan, who is with Product Management. Sai, thank you for being here today. Thank you for having us in your offices.
Thanks for being in our office. Really a pleasure to host you guys.
We always like going to Cohesity. You guys are always very nice. So tell us about the Cohesity Cloud and what it means for customers.
Sure. So with our vision of hyperconverged secondary storage, cloud is an important part of what customers are looking for. And the way they're looking at it is really, I would say, in broadly three areas, right? The first one is around just the storage integration. This is where you can think about it as Azure Blobs, AWS S3 Glacier, and then the Google Cloud Storage. So here, customers are really looking at storing data for long-term retention in the cloud, right? That's sort of like primary use case. They back up, it lands on Cohesity, and then it moves to the cloud. The second aspect is the hybrid scenario, where the VMs land on Cohesity as part of the backup process, and then they are then moved to the Cohesity Cloud Edition, which is the software that runs in the cloud. This is just Cohesity data platform, as we like to call it, running in Azure or in AWS. And the idea there is you take these virtual machines and spin them up for test dev and DR scenarios. So that's the hybrid aspect of it. And then the third one, where we are seeing more resurgence or more need from customers, is completely native pure play cloud, right? Where these VMs or compute infrastructures are born in the cloud, and customers are looking for similar data protection capabilities as we offer in the on-prem world. So does that give a sense of sort of like what the three broad major buckets are as far as how we see customers using the cloud? It
does. And let me ask a couple of follow-up questions. Okay. One is, so you have DR scenario. So basically, if I have an outage, I can spin my workloads back up in the cloud. What about the networking piece? Do you handle sort of reestablishing communication and stuff to make sure that I can still access my workloads?
So typically what we have seen is most customers either have, some of our larger enterprise customers, as a matter of fact, actually have, say, Direct Connect or Express Route. And then in this scenario, they obviously establish some kind of a VPN connection between their on-prem and the cloud world, right? So at least that basic networking setup between how communication happens between on-prem and cloud is taken care of. To your specific question on what do we do with the networking, there is ability within the Cohesity platform to reconfigure your networking options as part of spinning up those VMs in the cloud. Mm-hmm. So during that time, the customers have the flexibility to do some kind of post scripts or automation scenarios, as we like to say, in order to figure out what kind of networking changes need to happen as part of any DR scenario. In fact, I would say this is agnostic, right, to whether we are in the cloud or not. This is true even from an on-prem to on-prem DR. You would have to go through similar networking configuration changes. So it sort of mimics the same.
So the other piece of this is integration with everything else. So when I want to deploy this, it's basically a matter of standing up a VPN, potentially extending my layer 2 network over there if I want to, or not if I don't want to do that. And then you're off to the races with it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we already have customers who are using the Cohesity Cloud Edition, and precisely that. I mean, like I said, they're starting off more with the test dev scenarios as they get comfortable with it in terms of not just Cohesity, but more importantly, comfortable with the cloud aspects as well. Mm-hmm. Then they're looking at sort of data center consolidation, potentially replacing their third or even or fourth site in some cases, and bringing them into the cloud. So that's what we see. The other thing that I should mention, just in terms of how we collaborate with the cloud vendors, is especially in cases where there is large ingest of the initial data set to either Azure Blob or AWS S3, we're seeing customers looking at the AWS Snowball or even the recently announced Azure Data Box. In fact, we are working very closely with both AWS and Microsoft in terms of some of these large data set movements into the cloud. That's something I wanted to highlight as well in terms of collaboration with the cloud vendors.
And for anybody who's not familiar with the Snowball or the AWS, or I'm sorry, the Azure
Data
box, it's basically they ship it to you, you load your data, ship it back, and then it does a catch up later on with anything that's changed since you shipped the box, correct?
Right. So the way it works is, if you look at how Cohesity interfaces with just cloud storage in general, we use the REST API mechanisms, right? So the idea is everything in Cohesity is a concept of jobs based on certain SLAs that you want to hit, and the job typically is sending data to the cloud. Now, in this case, because the initial data set is very large, you said it right. You get a Snowball or an Azure data box on premise. Now we treat that as the external target and dump that initial data set into that device, and then the customer just ships it off. Then the data is hydrated into that storage account of the customer by the cloud vendor. And then once that's completed, now from the Cohesity standpoint, we just remap it to the external target, now not being these devices that you had on-prem, but the cloud account itself. So from that point on, the subsequent incremental data set is what is sent to the cloud. So that's sort of how our customers are leveraging Snowball and also looking to leverage Azure Data Box as well.
So can you tell us a little bit of a customer story? Like give us an example of a customer that's using Cohesity Cloud successfully.
Sure. So this is actually one of our public reference customers. You can find them on our website as well. It's the University of California down in Southern California, Santa Barbara. So the way they started off is they obviously looked at Cohesity as a great replacement for some of their incumbent backup aspects in the on-prem, and immediately they looked at cloud in actually two different ways. They had one data set which was sort of not PII information, so they could just go with the regular cloud in that case. And then they had a second department within the school where they were capturing a lot of security videos. These were just body cam videos from the campus security. So for the non-critical or the non-PII data set, the data was backed up onto Cohesity, and then as part of what we call the cloud archive functionality in Cohesity, the data was sent to the cloud for long-term retention. And the school has a policy of retaining that data for a certain number of years. And then on the more PII data, the body cam videos that I was talking about, they leveraged the GovCloud aspects. The GovCloud is a more secure cloud that the cloud vendors provide. So they leveraged that to send that particular data set. So they had two different jobs, one going to the regular cloud and one going to the GovCloud. Following that, they also have started using our Cloud Edition software, and starting with test dev, and then eventually looking at it for DR elements as well. More from a hey, I want to get a lot of these schools within UCSB consolidated, and now provide DR as a service to many of the departments within the school. So that's sort of like a classic example of how they started with on-prem and then adopted the cloud pieces. Hopefully that helps.
It does. It's excellent. Sai, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Scott.
And thank you to our audience for watching this RoadCast video.